What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to review the Dynaudio Emit 10. This is the new version. They came out in 2021 and we're going to talk about it. If you've been following me for a while, you might remember I reviewed the old model, the Dynaudio Emit M10, a while back, and I had a lot of criticism. I didn't really like them too much, but I was still curious about Dynaudio, and what I was most curious about is if those criticisms I had are present or fixed with the new model. So I bought a pair with my own money, and we're gonna find out if those criticisms I had have been resolved. So let's get into it. I'll throw the specs on screen so you guys can check that out. You guys know I'm not gonna jump into all those nitty-gritty details. I'm gonna tell you about the specs and standout features. I'll tell you what they sound like. We'll do some comparisons, then we'll wrap it up, okay? So let's talk about the aesthetic complaints I had first. And they have both been resolved. The first one was the binding posts. The old model had this weird ring around the binding post that stopped you from using spades. Now, I don't use spades, so it doesn't bother me, but it was just this weird, unnecessary feature, and that is gone. So thank you for fixing that. My second aesthetic complaint was the front baffle of the old model looked like Swiss cheese. There were screw holes everywhere. All the hardware was visible. It just wasn't a good look. I'll throw a picture on screen so you can see what I'm talking about. This new version is just cleaned up, more refined aesthetically, and I'm just super happy for that. One knock about the aesthetics of this new model is this new model has a painted front baffle and a vinyl wrapped cabinet. The old model had a fully painted cabinet. I wish this was fully painted, but you know what I mean? It's still $800 like the outgoing model. Most companies have raised their prices on new gear. Dynaudio's kept the price the same by giving us vinyl instead of paint. Plus, at the end of the day, usually speakers under $2,000 are vinyl wrapped, so no surprise there. Anyhow, aside from that, guys, it's a pretty standard affair, so there's really no standout features. You know, Dynaudio does use, like, you know, they do make their own drivers, they make their own tweeters, so like that is cool and stuff, but let me just tell you what this damn thing sounds like. So I'm gonna do this in a different way. I'm gonna tell you my complaints about the old one and then how this new one performs. So my complaints with the old model Emit M10 were the top end was quite a bit boosted, sharp, and elevated. And it was just too much, right? It didn't seem to be very refined to my ears, and I just didn't like the top end. This new model is still just a little bit on the forward side of neutral, but much more refined than the old model. The attack of the treble is just a little bit softer than the outgoing model, which makes it a little bit more pleasing to the ears. You're still getting a good amount of detail. It's just been refined and cleaned up overall, the top end, and big improvement over the outgoing model. So that criticism has been fixed. Thank you for that. Moving down to the mid-range, the old version was a pretty deep V-curve speaker. I would say the mid-range was very recessed, and it felt like the singer was way further back than they should have been. This one is not like that either. So it looks like they have also fixed the mid-range. The mid-range is now more what I would consider neutral. It's not luscious and juicy, warm and thick. It's not super cool and analytical. It's not recessed. It's just a normal mid-range with good center imaging, good vocalist projection, and a neutral affair. And when the mid-range is neutral, there's just not a lot to talk about. So let's move down to the bass. The old model, M10, had quite a lot of bass. It was boosted. Like I said, it was a deep V-curve speaker. A lot of boosted bass, and it was very sloppy, very slow. It just wasn't good. This new model cleans that up. We've still got a good amount of bass. It's still boosted a little bit. It's not the tightest bass in the world, but it is worlds better than the outgoing model. It's much cleaner, it's better put together, and so on. So from top to bottom, essentially what we've got is we've got more refinement in the top end than the outgoing model. A speaker that I would say class leading. I'd say the tweeter on this bad boy is better than just about everything I've heard at this price point. It is very good. Mid-range, mostly neutral, a little bit of boost in the bass, which most of us like. No problem there. And if you don't like that extra boost in the bass, the speaker does come with port plugs that you can plug and make them sealed, and that tightens up the bass a lot. If you prefer a tighter sound to your bass, you're like, hey, I don't need a ton of bass, I just want it tight and clean, the port plugs totally fix that. So all my criticisms have been resolved, and I'm really happy to see that. It's almost like, and I know this didn't happen, I know there's no way this happened, but it's almost like they watched my old video and then like made all the changes. But like, I know that didn't happen. My channel's way too small and they are way too big of a company to even know who the hell I am. Anyhow, good speaker, happy with it so far. How does it compare to other speakers in the market? So let's talk about the Polk R100. It's $649. Absolutely love that speaker. It is one of my favorite recommendations in that price point. Starting with the top end, they both have really good tweeters. I love the sound of the Polk R100 tweeter. I don't have any complaints about it for its price point. However, directly compared to the Dynaudio Emit 10, the Emit 10 does have the more refined tweeter. It is a little bit more resolving, is a little bit easier on the ears. It gives you a little bit more detail and a little bit sparkle. It just takes the edge. Its tweeter is better than just about everything in its price category. But again, the Polk Audio R100 is still very, very good with its tweeter. Moving down to the mid-range, the Polk R100 is a little bit warmer in the mid-range, so it's a little bit more textured, organic sounded, a little bit more emotion in that mid-range. Dynaudio Emit 10 is going to be a little bit more neutral, so that's going to come down to personal taste. Moving down to the bass, the Polk R100 just doesn't have a ton of bass. By direct comparison to the Dynaudio Emit 10, the Polk R100 is just going to sound a little bit thinner. It is what it is. So which one you like, I would say comes down to personal taste. I'll try to make it easy for you. If you like a bit more character in your speaker, you like a little bit of warmth in the mid-range, go with the Polk. If you place a higher importance on treble, you want that refined tweeter, you want that easier to listen to presentation, you want a speaker that's going to have a higher performance ceiling, especially with the top end as you use more expensive gear, go for the Dynaudio Emit 10. So let's jump over to something like the Focal Core 806. That's a little bit more expensive. It's about $1,000 for the pair. These are $800. So these are pretty different speakers. The Focal Core 806 tweeter is going to be a lot more resolving, a lot more detailed, but a little bit sharper with its presentation, where the Dynaudio Emit 10 is going to be a little bit softer with its presentation. Both are fairly refined. I would say the Dynaudio Emit 10, I don't know if it's more refined, but it is easier to listen to with its softer attack, where the Focal Core 806 has a sharper attack. Low volume performance on the Core 806 is going to be superior to just about anything under $1,000, so there's no competition there. But the top end of the two speakers is really going to come down to personal taste. I wouldn't say one's better than the other. Unless detail retrieval is very important to you, then the Focal Core 806 is the easy choice. Moving down to the mid-range of the two speakers are more similar than different, so there's nothing to really talk about. Moving down to the bass, both speakers have a good amount of bass. The Focal Core 806 has less bass, but it's more controlled, it's quicker, it's more articulate. The Dynaudio Emit 10 has a fuller sound with its bass from top to bottom, but it's just not going to be as quick, it's not going to be as resolving, and it's not going to be as tight by direct comparison. So let me try to make it easy for you. If you value lots of detail, that's super important to you. You like your treble to be a little bit on the sharp side, but not offensive in any way. And you like low volume performance is very important to you. Focal Core 806 is the one for you. If, on the other hand, you want a speaker that's going to have a more refined sound in the top end, with a little bit of a softer presentation that's easier on the ears, you want bass that's fuller even if it's not the quickest, and you want a speaker that's going to kind of open up more as you give it more and more volume, go for the Dynaudio Emit 10. Let's jump over and talk about something like the Elac DBR62 that's quite a bit larger, but stay with me here. The top end, I'm going to make it really easy for you. The top end of the Dynaudio Emit 10 is just superior to the Elac DBR62. The Elac DBR62's tweeter is its weakest link. It can become sibilant at times. It can become just a little bit unrefined, especially if you're not using like very expensive gear with it. And that's a shame because it's not a very expensive speaker. They're $700 a pair, but if you pair it with an amp that's like $1,000, that tweeter is going to start to show its weakness. So top end, easy win, Dynaudio Emit 10. Moving down to the mid-range, things get interesting here. The Elac DBR62 mid-range really is the star of the show. It's killer, it's well textured, it's romantic sounding, it's got a little bit of warmth, and the tone is just a tone that a lot of people like. Moving over to the Dynaudio Emit 10, it's a more standard affair, it's more neutral, but it's going to give you more of a sense of openness. Moving down to the bass, despite being larger, the Elac DBR62 has less of a fuller sound, more of a tighter sound. Its mid-bass region is boosted, which gives the leading edge of the bass notes, more distinction as far as note-to-note distinction, more of a tactile feel with the bass, but there's not a sense of like thickness or juiciness with the bass. Moving back to the Dynaudio Emit 10, the bass is going to be just fuller sounding, juicier, thicker overall, with not as strong as a leading edge, not as clear note-to-note distinction compared to the Elac. This is going to be really easy. If you're using really high-end gear, that tweeter issue of the Elac, not such an issue anymore. So it's just going to come down to mid-range and bass. You like that warmer mid-range with that tighter bass, go for the Elac. You like the more neutral mid-range with the little bit more boosted bass, go for the Dynaudio Emit 10. However, if you're using cheaper gear, the Elac DBR62 starts to become a tough recommendation. So what else do we have that we can compare it to? And then we are going to wrap this bad boy up. Let's do the Monitor Audio Bronze 100 real quick. That's $675 for the pair, so quite a bit cheaper than the $800 pair Dynaudio Emit 10. The treble presentation of both speakers is fairly similar, but the Dynaudio Emit 10 just does it better. I don't want to keep repeating myself, so I'm just going to leave it at that. The Dynaudio Emit 10 does have what I would consider one of the better tweeters in this price category. Moving down to the mid-range, both are mostly neutral, not a lot to say. Moving down to the bass, the Monitor Audio Bronze 100 has an 8-inch driver. So it's going to give you quite a bit more extension than the much smaller Dynaudio Emit 10s. So I'll make it simple for you because the Monitor Audio Bronze 100 are really, really, really good at one thing: voice intelligibility and dialogue clarity. So if you're going to use these speakers in a mixed system, you're going to use your system when you're watching Netflix, for example, watching movies, and dialogue clarity is really important to you, just go with the Monitor Audio Bronze 100s. You're not going to regret it. They have so much clarity. But if this is for just a purely music system, the easy edge goes to the Dynaudio Emit 10s, again for that better tweeter, a mid-range that is mostly similar, and bass that is not better or worse, just different, I would say. So there you have it, guys. If you want to know more about the Dynaudio Emit 10 or have any questions about them, you can ask in the comments below or join this channel's free Discord where we could chat about it. If you do join the Discord, please remember, everyone in the Discord should be kind, courteous, and polite. It is not a place to flex your ego or try to seem like the big shot. If you do join the free Discord, you should converse with people the same way you would converse with a close friend, with courtesy and respect. So with that said, I don't have much else to say about the Dynaudio Emit 10. I think they're a fantastic speaker at $800, and I'm happy to see Dynaudio's corrected all of the criticisms I had about the outgoing model. I own these personally, and they are great, but I am curious what their other stuff could do. So I might sell these to fund a more high-end Dynaudio purchase. Maybe we'll check out the Special 40s. Who knows? Anyways, guys, until next time, later.